Well, what do you make of COVID-19? What do you make of this coronavirus? You know, much of our discussion about it has focused on the symptoms. Some people have bad symptoms, some people seem to have very little symptoms. Or the death rate, or the R value. You hear them on the news talking about the R value. And a lot of our decisions have been made about trying to reduce the spread of the virus and balance that between trying to have as little impact as possible on the economy. And that's a difficult one to get right. But is there another message? Is coronavirus saying something bigger, higher to us than that? Is God trying to tell us anything? Do you know the Bible has much to say about pandemics, epidemics, and what they might mean in terms of our relationship with God. And I guess if we were to boil it all down, to distill it, we would come to this. The time has come to seek God. That's it. The time has come to look for God. The time has come to return to God. The time has come to reconnect with God. And maybe you've been doing that, I don't know. Maybe during this lockdown, you've found yourself doing something that's completely new to you. Something that you've never done before, and maybe you never even dreamed that you'd ever do. You've been praying. You've been calling out to God. Well, if that's you, the Bible gives you great encouragement to keep going. See, the prophet Jeremiah says this, speaking on God's behalf, he says, "You shall seek me and find me when you search for me with all your heart." Keep going. You see, there's no merit in seeking. Now, I had some Roman Catholic friends once, and they thought it was wonderful to be seeking. And seeking was everything. But you know, when you've lost something and you can't find it, seeking is very frustrating. No, joy comes with finding. Finding. So let me ask you, have you found God? Have you? Have you found him? You know, there are some people who start seeking and they find God very quickly. It's almost as if, whoa, there it is, it comes all of a sudden. But there are other people who seem to be seeking and looking for God for quite some time before they find him. Their search seems to go on, and it's long and painful and difficult. Why? Why is it that some people are seeking for God, but they don't find him? Now, over the lockdown, I prepared a couple of messages for the chapel here, which Nick put up on the website. And they seek to address this question: why do we seek for God and don't find him? Well, in those two messages, I gave two reasons. One of them is that God knows our hearts. And God knows that our turning to him is only temporary. It's a flash in the pan. It's like the dew on the grass in the mornings. By 11 o'clock, it's gone. Maybe that's you. But maybe the second reason I gave was that we're not willing to give up the things that we know God doesn't approve of. And you know what? God won't share your heart with anything else. He's not going to share your heart with your sins. And he calls you to give them up. Do you know, it's no good two-timing God. He won't have it. But tonight I want to explore a third reason. It's not just that we may be temporary in seeking God. It's not just that we may not be willing to give up our sins. But thirdly, we might not be willing to give up our righteousness. And that is the problem that the Apostle Paul is grappling with here in this 10th chapter of his letter to the Romans. Paul is speaking about the yearning of his heart for his own fellow countrymen. Now, I know as Welsh people you have a yearning for your fellow countrymen, like I do as an Englishman for my fellow countrymen. And Paul had the same for his fellow countrymen. He longed for them to find God. He said, look, they're very enthusiastic about God. They're very enthusiastic about seeking God. They go to great lengths to try to please God and to be accepted by God. But they've made one very simple mistake. There's one thing they haven't yet understood. Listen to Paul. There in the 3rd verse of chapter 10. He says, for they, his fellow countrymen, being ignorant of God's righteousness and going about to establish their own righteousness, have not submitted themselves unto the righteousness of God. Now you say, whoa. There's a lot of righteousness in there. Yes, there is. It's a big word. He uses it 3 times. Now, what does Paul mean by righteousness? Well, in fact, there are two types of righteousness here. Firstly, there's God's righteousness. He means the pure, spotless, perfect character of God. God is light without a shadow. God is beauty without a blemish. God is clean without a speck. God is clear without a haze. God is gold without impurity. God is perfect. Perfect. That is the righteousness of God. But then he speaks about my righteousness or our righteousness. What does he mean by that? Well, he means the very best that we can do. The very best that we can muster up. The very best that we can bring to offer to God. And in talking about the Jews, he is particularly focusing on their keeping of the 10 Commandments. Tell me, what's the best thing you've ever done? Just give a moment. Think about it. What's the best thing? That's your righteousness. Okay, that's what he means. But he said the problem that his fellow countrymen had was that they'd not understood something. They'd not understood just how far away their righteousness was from God's. God's righteousness was far distant to theirs. God's righteousness was perfect. And as a result, because they hadn't quite grasped that, what they were trying to do was running around like headless chickens, trying to build up their own righteousness. If you like, trying to close the gap between their righteousness and God's. They were trying to kind of bridge the gap themselves and kind of get across it to kind of get up to God's standard. And they were very careful about it, very diligent about it. The Pharisees, one of the religious groups among the Jews, they had boiled down the Old Testament to 600 plus commandments that they had to remember and keep. And it affected every part of their life. It affected their relationships. It affected their home life. It affected the food in the kitchen. It affected how they washed. It affected what clothes they could wear. It affected every aspect of living. 600 plus. I mean, I couldn't remember them. 600 plus. Listen, Jesus describes this way of thinking. He describes one of these religious people, a Pharisee, going up to pray. The Pharisee stood and prayed thus with himself: God, I thank thee that I am not as other men are, extortioners, unjust, adulterers, or even this publican. I fast twice in the week. I give tithes of all that I possess. That is the righteousness of Pharisees. Now, of course, in a way, it's all very natural. Because you and I, we want to justify ourselves. We want to clear ourselves. We do it all the time. We want to be well thought of. We want God to think well of us. And so we big up the things that we do which we think are good, and we kind of downplay the things that we do that we know are not so good. So instead of being frank about it and saying that the dishonest things we say are lies, oh, well, they're white lies. Or they're little white lies. Because we're playing them down. But why is this approach of the Jews in trying to bridge the gap with God, why is that a mistake? I've got 4 reasons. Very simple. They all begin with D, all right? You should be able to remember them. Firstly, my righteousness is defective. Okay, that's the first thing. Now you listen to the words of Jesus in the Sermon on the Mount. So his famous sermon where he sat there on the mountainside and taught his disciples. He says, "For I say unto you," Matthew chapter 5 verse 20, "that except your righteousness shall exceed the righteousness of the scribes and Pharisees, ye shall in no case enter into the kingdom of heaven." He says, look, that righteousness, those 600 plus commandments, your righteousness has to be better than that, because that is defective. There's something wrong with it. Now, the Apostle Paul, who wrote this letter, in one of the other letters, writes about himself and about how he came to understand this for himself. In his letter to the church in Philippi, he says this: "I was circumcised the 8th day of the stock of Israel, of the tribe of Benjamin, and Hebrew of the Hebrews, as touching the law, a Pharisee. Concerning zeal, persecuting the church," there I was really super keen. "Touching the righteousness which is in the law, blameless." I was brought up with these 600 plus commandments. I knew them all. I kept them all. Blameless. But Jesus is saying, that's not enough. That's not good enough. Now tell me, what's your record like? What's your record like with God? Is it as good as the Pharisees, the 600 plus commandments? I doubt it. Mine isn't as good as that. It's not good enough. It's defective. My righteousness is defective. That's the first thing. Second thing, my righteousness is dirty. Now, back in the Old Testament, one of the great prophets in the Old Testament, Isaiah, he says these words, "We are all as an unclean thing, and all our righteousnesses are as filthy rags." That's startling, isn't it? He's not talking about our sins. He's not talking about the things we do wrong. He's talking about the very best things we can offer to God. Filthy rags. Well, that's a bit insulting, isn't it? I mean, come on. That's not really very fair. But wait a minute. Whose angle are you looking from? Yours or God's? Who are you comparing yourself with? You see, we like to compare ourselves with people next door, or people up the road, or probably the worst people in our street. We like to compare ourselves with them because it makes us look good. And we say, well, yeah, I'm pretty good. But what if you compare yourself with God? Then things look a little different. Then our righteousness is filthy rags. You know, Isaiah learnt this himself rather painfully. Isaiah was a young preacher, just starting out as a preacher. He'd been preaching for some time. I don't know, maybe he thought he was quite good, I don't know. But in the 6th chapter of his prophecy, he sees a vision of God. He sees God sat on his throne. He sees the angels. And he hears the angels calling to one another in the presence of God, "Holy, holy, holy. The whole earth is full of his glory." And what does he do? What does Isaiah do? I said, "Woe is me, for I am undone. For I am a man of unclean lips." Now that was amazing. This was a man who used his lips to proclaim the message of God. This was a man who preached the messages God gave him with his lips. And now he says, "Oh, now I see it. My lips are unclean. My righteousness is a dirty, filthy rags." Listen, my friends, doesn't the cleanness of God make you feel dirty? In the light of God's perfections, don't your righteousnesses, the best things you do, don't they feel tainted? Tainted by false motives, tarnished by your pride and seeking to big yourself up in the presence of God. Filthy rags. That's all they are. Filthy rags. Listen, I don't know whether you've got that, but your righteousness is defective, and mine, and dirty. And that has consequences, you know. Thirdly, my righteousness is damning. Listen again to those words of Jesus. Except your righteousness shall exceed, shall be better than the righteousness of the scribes and Pharisees, ye shall in no case enter into the kingdom of heaven. Have you got that? There's no place in heaven for your righteousness. Have you understood that? No, I know we all think we're exceptions. We're the exception. Jesus says there's no case. There's no exceptions. Your righteousness will not be welcome in heaven. Have you understood that? Listen, your record is tainted, as is mine. It doesn't matter how white you try to paint your lies, they're still lies. But it's not only Jesus that says that. Listen to the very last but one chapter of the Bible, Revelation 21. Because in it, John sees the new heavens and the new earth. He sees the great glory that's up ahead. He describes heaven, and he says this: there shall in no wise enter into it anything that defileth, filthy rags. There's no place for filthy rags in heaven. Neither whatsoever worketh abomination, or maketh a lie. There is no place for dishonesty or deceitfulness in heaven. Listen, my friends, I know this is painful, but your righteousness is ruined, and so is mine. And as long as we keep trying to justify ourselves, as long as we keep trying to say, oh, I'm going to present my righteousness to God, we will never accept the offer that the Bible presents to us. Now, my Roman Catholic friends that I spoke to about earlier on, I said to them once, when you stand in front of God, what reason are you going to give him he should let you in? I said, I know what you're going to say. You're going to say, well, I trust in Jesus. But in my back pocket, just as an insurance policy, just in case he wants to see it, I've got a list of all the good things I've ever done. And I'll bring it out for him. Listen, my friends, that's a dirty rag. There's no place for that in heaven. But it's worse than that. Because while you're still keeping hold of this, your good record, you'll never trust the message of the Bible. This will take you to hell. While you keep clinging hold of your righteousness, hell is where you're going to end up. Listen again in Revelation, the same chapter earlier on. But the fearful and unbelieving and the abominable and murderers and whoremongers and sorcerers and idolaters and all liars shall have their part in the lake which burneth with fire and brimstone. Has your lips always spoken the truth? Has your tongue ever said something deceitful? Listen, your record, your righteousness is tainted. And it will damn you. So what are we to do? Listen, while we keep comparing ourselves with our neighbours and our friends and our people up our street, we're saying, I'm not as bad as them. But the Bible is comparing you to God. And it's saying, you're not as good as him. And that's a bit different. Listen, this is painful. This is difficult. Our righteousness is defective, it's dirty, it's damning. But we need to learn something else. Something even more painful. Something that the Apostle Paul had to learn himself personally. My righteousness is dung. The horses are trotting along the road, and you know when they've been. Listen to the Apostle Paul. He's listed in Philippians all his righteousness. He said, oh, look, I was blameless. What does he say? But what things were gained to me, those I counted loss for Christ. Yea, doubtless I count all things but loss for the excellency of the knowledge of Christ Jesus my Lord, for whom I have suffered the loss of all things. And I do count them but dung. Dung. I mean, it almost seems the wrong thing to be saying. Listen. If you want to be accepted by God, if you want to find God, you have to see your righteousness the way God sees it. You have to see it from a different light. Dung. It's not just that I mustn't keep trusting my righteousness. It's not just that I must stop relying on my righteousness. I must ditch it. I must flush it. I must distance myself from it because it stinks. Listen, my friends, as long as you keep clinging to your righteousness, that defective, dirty, damning dung, you will never find God. Isn't that what Paul's saying here? For they, being ignorant of God's righteousness and going about to establish their own righteousness. That's the problem. So you might say, well, how is God going to receive me then? If my righteousness is so disgusting to God, how is he going to receive me? I've got good news for you. Good news. Truly is good news. Because there is one whose righteousness was acceptable to God. There is one whose record did please God. There is one whose righteousness was untainted, untarnished. There is one who God was so pleased with that he spoke from heaven. Matthew records it. Matthew chapter 3 verse 17. When Jesus came up out of the water after he was baptized, lo, a voice from heaven saying, "This is my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased." And again, Matthew 17, Jesus is transfigured on the hillside, and Peter makes a bit of a gaffe. And so one of the things he says, and a cloud overshadows them, and a voice from heaven, "This is my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased." Listen, God is a great Father. He's the best Father there is. And when his Son pleases him, he says it. He tells him. Has God ever spoken from heaven to you and said, "You're my beloved son, daughter, child, and I'm well pleased with you"? No. Why? Because the righteousness of Jesus was pure, spotless. Jesus strove to achieve the thing that we failed to achieve. Jesus' righteousness is available to you. He offers it to you. Do you know, the offer of the Bible, the offer of the gospel is this: that the pure, spotless, untainted, untarnished, perfect, heavenly, sweet-smelling, divine righteousness of Jesus Christ can be yours for free. He'll give it to you. But you have to do something. How does Paul put it in Romans? For they, being ignorant of God's righteousness and going around to establish their own righteousness, have not submitted themselves unto the righteousness of God. Submit. Submit. Now that's a nasty word that we don't really like. It means we give up all claim to ourselves. You say, "Okay, Lord, you win. I submit." And you must submit to the righteousness of God, the righteousness that Jesus offers you. So here you are this evening. And to this point, you've been clinging on to your own righteousness. Now, I understand that. It's natural. It's all you've ever known, your righteousness. And it's natural to kind of polish your own righteousness and kind of make it look as good as it can look. But it's like a boat with a hole in it. It's going down. And it's going down to hell. But I'm offering you, the Bible offers you a lifeline. The righteousness of Jesus. That's what I'm offering you tonight. The righteousness of Jesus. But in order to take the righteousness of Jesus, you need to let go of your own righteousness. You say, "Okay, I know I've been trusting this for so long. Go on, off you go. Just go. Go. Jesus is what I want. His righteousness." Listen, my friend, if you take Jesus tonight, if you trust Jesus Christ tonight, and you receive his righteousness tonight, you will become perfectly acceptable to God. And that is amazing. It is. Do you know, when God looks on you as a new Christian, clothed in the righteousness of Jesus, you are as welcome in heaven as Jesus was himself. From those dirty rags. Why are you keeping hold of those dirty rags? Chuck them away. Jesus offers you clean, pure, spotless, white, untainted, untarnished, divine, heavenly, sweet-smelling perfection. He offers it to you. To you, to you, to you, to you. He offers it to you. Listen, my friends, it's a no-brainer. It really is. Listen again to the words of Jesus, and this I'll close with. Jesus says, "Come unto me, all ye that labour and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest." Listen, are you greatly burdened? Maybe part of your burden is that you're going round trying to make yourself acceptable to God. Stop it! Stop it! Jesus says, "Come to me, and I'll give you the rest that you're longing for. I'll give you the peace that you're longing for. Come to me," he says. Why stay away? It's madness. Why stay away when Jesus, the one that God was well pleased with, he invites you. He says, "Come, come on, come to me." Well, how about it? How about it? Why not come to Jesus Christ tonight and bow to him and say, "Lord, I have to admit I've made a bit of a dog's dinner of my life. I've made a mess. But I know that you're acceptable to God. Take away my sins. Take away my righteousness. And give me your righteousness. And receive me. Here's the keys. I'm handing the keys of my life over to you. I'm all yours." How about it? Tonight? Come on, my friends. Join me. Let's enjoy the righteousness that Jesus has come to bring us. Amen. Amen. Well, I hope you found that helpful. And if you'd like to know more as to what it means to be a Christian, or you'd like help in your search for finding God, why don't you contact Calvary Evangelical Church in Rumney, and they'd be more than happy to send literature or to help you in some other way that you might enjoy the salvation that Jesus came to bring.